Welcome, everyone. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert, author, speaker, and podcast host. You're listening to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. More women than ever are faced with challenging decisions on a regular basis. I am so privileged to sit down with them to discuss exactly what they've gone through and how they've come out the other side, realizing their wildest dreams. I'm sure you'll be able to relate. And don't forget to stay to the end to take advantage of my latest free gift. Let's get started. Welcome to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert, and as always, we're here talking about decisions that have been made in our lives that were courageous or impactful or changed the course of our life, or even one that we maybe wish we could go back on. Today, I have Terry Sidford as my guest. Terry is a popular TEDx speaker, a certified life coach, and author of a brand new book, Truth, Courage, Love. Terry, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So before we get started, I just want to remind all of our listeners that I ask all my guests at the end of the show what their favorite app is on their phone outside of social media. So you'll want to stay to the end to see what Terry has to say because we get some great suggestions. As a reminder, you also want to stay to the end to get access to my latest freebie. All right. So Terry, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited about our conversation. So we're going to take this step by step, and I really want you to set the stage for us. But before we get started, I want to remind all my listeners that I don't know what decision we're going to talk about today. I always want it to be a surprise so that our conversation, it just flows. So Terry, we're going to take this step by step. I want you to set the stage for us as it relates to the decision that you've so graciously offered to share with us today. So start off by telling us about the background, how old you were, where you were living, what you were doing, all those pieces for us.
I was in my early 20s. I was living in Salt Lake City, and I had very low self-esteem growing up from a dysfunctional family, alcoholic mother, and leaving our mother at the age of 6. And I loved her very much. And so it was, I was very insecure. So I made some not so good life choices along the way. One, including dating a con artist boyfriend. Oof. And I lost everything, including my credit. I had no money, a little bit, no car. I didn't have a place to live. And I was sleeping on my girlfriend's couch until I could figure out what to do.
So you said you were in your early 20s at this time? Okay.
And I remember I finally saved up. I always had a job somehow. That was my saving grace. And I saved up enough money to rent a room out of a house. Okay. And this was the most defining moment in my life, basically. And I was sitting in that room, it was bare walls. There was no furniture. I didn't even have a bed. And I'm sitting on this, brown shag carpet, the old, carpet.
I can smell it.
Yeah, I was going to say it smelled awful. And I was looking at the beige walls, nothing on it. And I just sat there and I thought, how did I get here? I'm a good person. And then I just started to cry and cry and cry till I just felt like there was just no more tears left. And I didn't know what all the tears were. It was more like, how did I get here? And I actually started to mourn everything that had happened in my life to get me to this point. And then something spectacular happened. Wow. I just kind of realized in that moment, and this gets to the decision that I made, that even though this guy took everything material and emotional away from me, it never take my soul. I had nothing. I still had myself.
Right.
So that just this decision I made that day, which has stayed with me the rest of my life, is that I do not have to be a victim. I always have myself. I could lose everything and be still whole and intact. Wow. And I'm not going to be a victim. of my circumstances. I still have a choice. I will always have myself, and I can take one step at a time and move forward. And I did.
Wow.
But if I would have let that affect me for the rest of my life, I would have not been successful and overcame everything and had a very fulfilling, successful life.
Exactly. And I can, at that age, that's a pretty profound epiphany to have. Can we go back a little bit? Because, you mentioned that you left your mom at age 6. So do you have siblings? Like, I fill in the blanks for me. Who did you wind up living with? What got you between age 6 to your early 20s?
I'm glad you asked that question, because that was the other decision I was considering talking about.
Mhm.
My parents, I had a wonderful family, a loving, wonderful family. Had 2 older siblings. I was the youngest. And I was 6 years old. We lived in Southern California. We had a beautiful house up on the hill with a pool. Everything was
Wow.
great.
Hmm.
Life was fantastic. And then all of a sudden my parents started fighting. I'd never heard them fight before. And then my mom started drinking, at first hiding it and then becoming blatant about it. And she was not a good drinker. I mean, when she drank, she was mean and yelled, and it was scary. And eventually my dad moved out because I
Okay.
think he had no other choice. And back then, the justice system was not great at taking kids away from an unsafe situation, because they wanted to keep them with their mother.
Right.
So fast forward maybe a year. So I was about 7. And one night, it was just so bad. We felt very in danger, my sister and I. And she's 5 years older.
Wow.
I'm 7. She's 5 years older than me. My brother, who's in the middle, was at the boys' club that night, luckily.
Okay.
We called our dad and said, Dad, come pick us up, because we feel unsafe. And we grabbed our pillowcases, put everything we could fit in it. And my sister gave me some strength that day, because I was really scared, like I was doing the wrong thing. But we had to take our safety in consideration. And so we walked out of the house with our pillowcases, walked 30 minutes to my dad's house, and we never returned and never lived with my mother again. So we ended up living with my father.
Wow.
And then to my 20s, my mom recovered eventually. It took some time. Yeah, and she became a registered nurse.
Wow.
So there's the happy ending to all that. But I had to do some work to heal that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I've become very, very, very close to her. So in the early 20s, I was healing that relationship at the same time when all that was happening.
Crazy.
Yes. So we're very, very close now. My mom's still alive. She's 84.
Wow.
And she's in a care center, and I have full responsibility of taking care of her, which is a real 360 degree.
I was going to say things come full circle, right?
Yeah, and I love her dearly. She, it was a disease, and I found I learned the full story of why she started drinking, and she was a wonderful person. So,
okay,
yeah.
All right. So you spent your teenage years with your dad, up until when? How old were you when you moved out?
Yes, 18 is when I moved out.
Okay.
My dad was a good one. He's always so loving and caring, and he's funny and he's wonderful, but he was a 60s dude. So I'm like, okay, now I got the 60s guy. But so there's a lot going on there. You have living girlfriend. Yeah, I could say more. And I just thought, hey, I just need to get out. And his mother, my grandmother, was a real positive influence and stable person for all of us. And so I moved to Salt Lake City.
That's what brought you there. Okay.
Yes, and my brother was already there. That was our safe haven.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a health food store, and he helped her with the health food store. And I moved up there thinking, well, I can go to school part-time, college, and just hang out with my brother and just my grandmother and see what happens. Thought I'd never stay in Salt Lake City.
Yet.
Never. I'm like, no, I just live in Southern California, right? But so I left at 18 to do that, and I've had great opportunities in Utah.
Great. Well, I'm very glad to hear that. I'm also curious how old you were when you met this con man that you speak of.
Yeah. I was in my early 20s, 22, 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked at a chiropractic office, and he was a chemical engineer, very handsome. He would come
What
in
was
with
he really a chemical engineer?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yes, he was. It was the one thing that was true.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I didn't see it coming because I was just kind of naive. I'm not kind of, I was definitely naive. I've always had a big heart, and I've always been very forgiving, or try to see the best in people. And what, I've learned since that situation is to really be careful, or not careful, but just be very aware of people and their intentions and who they are and their character, which
Right.
was a great lesson to learn. A little hard way to learn it, but I did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how long was that relationship?
I can't even remember. It didn't seem very long, but it got bad very quickly.
Okay.
6 months,
Okay.
8 months.
And the result of that then was you said you were still working, but you lost pretty much everything else.
Everything. My credit was gone. The car that he took, the car that was in my name, and they couldn't find him. And by the time he brought it back, my credit was already a mess. It was just a disaster, basically. And luckily I had good friends that helped me out during that time. And I was really, really embarrassed.
Whew.
And I didn't want to tell my family said, "Oh, come home, come home." I'm like, no, 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 no. I got to get out of this myself. I created this, and
Yes.
I'm going to work my way out of it. And I did. I got my credit cleaned up. I got my own apartment, my own car again. So I was very proud that I worked my way out of it.
Mm-hmm. So take me back to that, moment when you were sitting on that carpet, because I can't get the picture out of my head now.
I know.
And just walk me through all of the little pieces that were going through your mind, because you said you started to mourn a lot of the things, obviously, that you'd been exposed to in your short lifetime, at that point in time. And, you had that epiphany, essentially. So help me understand what was going on in your head.
It's funny, if you hear about adult children of alcoholics, or even children of alcoholics, you somehow think everything's your fault. And you should have fixed it, and it's a strange thing that happens. And that's part of my personality too. I'm a fixer. Okay. I'm a doer, and I'm a fixer. And so I just kept trying to figure things out and keep moving forward. And I had a great attitude. And so things weren't going well, and I thought I had it together. But then I kept making mistakes because I hadn't healed some things inside at all.
Okay.
I didn't realize that I was very insecure and sad and inside. And so I think in that moment, I allowed myself to feel all the pain.
Right.
That I'd been hiding. It's like, I got this, I can fix this, I got to have a good attitude, and I can smile and keep going. And so no one on the outside would ever, even in high school, no one ever thought I had any issues at home.
Wow.
Yeah, it's because I was good at covering it up. So in that moment, I felt it all, and I just, I couldn't stop crying, because that was kind of the pinnacle of, oh, Terry, things aren't going well.
Right.
Pretty bad mistakes.
Right. It was kind of all, your face was in a mirror almost, right? And you were seeing everything for what it was in that moment.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think I probably felt sorry for myself. I probably felt a little victimized, I mean, I probably went through every emotion possible.
Mm-hmm.
And my life is awful. Why me? But then I realized I just had to get through all of it.
Right. And as you were sitting there, then, what kind of time passed? Like, I'm just trying to understand how long you were there, lost in your thoughts.
It was a while. It was quite a few hours.
Wow.
And I remember feeling really, really, really lonely too. And when I had my epiphany, I had like this calmness come over me, self-love come over me.
Oh,
um,
what a
that I
privilege. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
might make me cry. So I tell people that the hardest moment in my life, besides having to leave my mother,
Mm-hmm.
um, really was the most transformative time in my, like a gift, like you said, in my life. Because even to this day, I feel blessed with my life. And yet I could lose everything and know that I have everything. I don't know how to explain that. I've tried to explain that to a few other people. And I said, I have everything I need. And what I need is very little, really. And thank goodness I got to learn that early in life. In fact, in 2008, married to my husband, we had some investments in real estate when the economy crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me like, he was just mortified, like, Terry, we might lose everything. And I went, that's okay. We're fine. We have our health. We have our kids. I could live in a small place. We can always work. It's not a big deal.
Right.
And you're like, what planet are you from?
Absolutely. And, one of the questions I ask people is, what was your mindset, in that moment or as you were making that decision? And I think for you, it wasn't necessarily about making a decision. It almost made itself for you, right, in that moment. And I almost feel like your mindset really shifted. And that was, you went into it with one mindset and came out with another. And that's really profound in terms of the growth that you probably experienced just in those few hours.
It was transformative. It really was transformative. And then there's one other little piece that might be good to share as far as a decision-making process as well, is that there was one piece of my furniture that had a bunch of my things in it. Like, I think it was a cedar chest or something.
Okay.
In the garage. And I remember my dad coming up and we felt like, well, how do we get this? And, we found his roommate and we were like, okay, so when they're gone, he's going to let us in the garage. We're going to get it. We felt like we were doing something illegal. At the same time, I discussed it with my dad and I said, well, should we call the police on, should we try to get him in trouble, like get him arrested and for everything he's done? And we had a long conversation about that. And my conclusion was I had to trust that life was going to take care of him, and that and I had to forgive him. And here's how I did not agree with anything he did. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness was releasing me from the negative energy and getting my power back. And so that's the decision I made. And I really, at that moment, boom, it was over. He was gone. He was in the past.
And that's definitely one that was in your hands, right? It wasn't something that happened to you through a thought process or anything. You consciously made the decision to forgive. And I think so many people, I think it's human nature, just a knee-jerk reaction. You just want to get back the people who hurt you, right? I think it's just a common practice.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
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 And whatever you want to call it, to allow karma to work. And I feel like there's a connotation that karma, if someone's done poorly to you, if you just let karma, take its course, something bad will happen to them that's out of your hands. But I also believe that karma also works positively in terms of if you're moving forward in a positive light, if you're, offering forgiveness, that your life is just going to circle back around with, positive intent and good things happening to you as well. So is that, a perspective that you share?
Absolutely. I remember thinking, well, why would I even give him the 1 ounce of me not doing well because of him? I'm going to, how can I get back? If I wanted to get back was to out to become the best person I can, to come out of this and thrive. And that way he will never be a part of this. And, it's interesting, right? Just so it's like, that's the positive karma. Like, why would I let him affect my life? I'm not going to give my power to him, not even 1 second, 1 little ounce of it, or for a second. So that was the positive part of that. But it took me a while. That didn't come naturally.
Right. And I don't think it does come naturally, right? It's something that you have to be very conscious of and consciously decide. And, it takes some maturity, that's for sure, because, like I say, we're not kind of tuned to work that way. It's like, being mad at someone whose energy is being wasted, yours, right? They probably don't even know that you're mad at them.
Isn't that the truth?
It is.
And then you have all these people around you that have their advice, right? Then, they're mad and they're upset and they want, and so you have to really get focused during the, to make the decision that's your decision.
Right.
That's
before we got on this call, we were talking about, how many things we have in common and how similar, a lot of things in our lives have been. And I feel like the decision you made to forgive, may or may not have been an isolated circumstance in your youth. And I had a similar stance almost about the same age, where I forgave. Like, I'm not a forgiving person. I can forget, and I don't let it consume me, but I'm not easy to forgive. And in that moment, I forgave. And I look back, and like you, it was a very key, pivotal, clear picture in my mind. And I know that I didn't do a lot of that, afterwards. It was just that one circumstance that I knew unequivocally that was the right path for me. And it sounds like you had that clarity as well.
Yes, I did. And it did help me understand how we give our power away when we're stuck on something from the past, right? That people have affected us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's helped me moving forward to get really clean. And sometimes it takes a long time. Like, well, so how, we all have those people or situations in life. And, I've had them. They were like, so how do I get this cleared up? So it's not, so I'm not attached to it
So
anymore.
it's not lingering, right? It's not stopping a little bit of your energy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just kind of letting go and seeing, wow. I think maybe I'm unusual in this manner. I know that people need to be accountable for their actions. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to make a real clear decision of who needs to do that and when and how or not. And so that's what I've learned too. And if you feel like that's not your place, but you still want to get rid, detach yourself from that, it's just, I see everybody, I have to sometimes see them as a little child or a little baby. And I don't know why they got to where they are. Mm-hmm. I know that there's some goodness in them somewhere. Right. And so I'm going to love and forgive them and move on. But I'm choosing not to associate this, or to let go of that and separate that tie or that negative energy in my life.
Right. And I think there's a difference between that and then, like you said earlier, maintaining kind of a victim mentality where you were done wrong and continuing to harbor, whatever ill will or resentment there is that surrounds that situation.
Absolutely. I mean, and I had to do that with my mother too. And the gift that I got back by realizing when I started to forgive her, I realized I got to see a different part of it and realized that she was doing the best she could. And she really was a wonderful woman. But if I never forgave her and gave her the opportunity to share with me her experience, I wouldn't have gotten this beautiful mother for so many years now. And I really don't feel like there's anything missing, even though I didn't live with her from 7 years old.
Wow.
Never did live with her again, but I don't feel like there's anything really missing. And I mean, that's a miracle to me.
Absolutely. I think you're very fortunate in that because I don't believe it's common, for people to have had that much distance at that age, especially, and then be able to really capture the essence of a mother-daughter relationship, into your adulthood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's very true. Now, of course, I am looking forward to a daughter-in-law or because I have two boys. So I mean, I'm hoping I get to have some, or a grandchild where I get to have that relationship, because there are, I think I missed a little bit of that day-to-day thing that you'd have with your mother.
That's understandable, for sure, for sure. So help me understand then how any of these stories might tie into your book, Terry.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yes. So my book's title is Truth, Courage, and Love. And those are three concepts that I took to a deeper meaning that allowed me to overcome many obstacles and live a very happy, fulfilling, and successful life. And in my book, I share the different stories, pretty much all. It's a memoir. It's all my stories, which I've done a TEDx talk, and I thought I was really brave to share a lot of my stories that I hid for a long time during that speech, and it was very freeing. But when I turned 60 this last year, I had to reflect on my life. I took a little moment, and I thought, is there anything else I want to do? Do I have any regrets? Have I lived my full potential? Have I been authentic? Have I left this, when I leave this planet, have I left people and the planet a better place because I've been here? And what legacy do I want to leave? And it's just all of a sudden, I didn't know that I was going to write another book. I'm sure you're an author. You understand how it just comes to you.
It does.
And it was almost like a download, like, it's time to not be, if you really want to be free, it's okay. You can tell all your stories and help other people. Say you can overcome anything, really, or so much you can overcome and really still feel like you live the best life ever. And that's what I want everyone to know from my book. And truth, courage, and love are deeper concepts that I used to get myself to this point.
Wow. I need to order my copy. I know we just connected last week and it's been a busy weekend, so I must put that on my to-do list this week for sure. It sounds like a book that shares concepts that would definitely relate to things I've lived in my life, but also to our listeners, and especially all the wildly courageous women that are listening and really trying to glean some insight into the different decisions that we're making and what's going into those decisions. So I'm really excited to learn more about your book and read it. So I'll let you know how that reading goes.
Thank you so much. And I just want to add one little thing about why the title is Truth, Courage,
Please.
and Love, is that really to really face your truth you need courage to do that, is the pathway to do that. And courage allows you to open your heart up to love and forgiveness. So they're all mixed together. So that's kind of the bottom line of a lot of what happened in my life.
Wow. I love that segue or, chain of events, or I love how you describe that for sure.
Thank you.
All right. I think that this is the beginning of many conversations, Terry. So I really appreciate you joining me today.
Oh, absolutely.
Great. I've got one final question then before
yes.
before we go, and I know I alluded to that at the front. So looking at your phone, I need to know what your favorite app is. I know I always mention the Decision Smith, and that should be everybody's favorite app, but so you can't say social media either.
I know I'm going to get that one. I think I just downloaded that one, so I'm going to.
Okay,
right?
great.
Yes,
Perfect.
I love it.
Perfect.
And that's a hard decision. There's so many great apps out there right now, but the one that I'm using and that is more that I look forward to, it's called I Am, and it will send me an affirmation every morning. I'm like, oh, and it's like someone's talking to you. They say I am, and they give you a beautiful affirmation for the day.
Wow.
So I really, really enjoyed that.
Wonderful. Is it something like you can set a setting, like send it to me at 8 o'clock every morning or something like that? Yes.
Yes. Whenever you receive it.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Again, that's what I love about this question, because I learn about a new app every single day. I spent last week starting to sort some of my apps on my phone because I've got so many now.
So many. I can't wait to hear about more of them.
Great. So Terry, I really want to thank you for sharing your time and your stories with me today. I know we covered quite a bit. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. If you're ready to realize your wildest dreams, come and join us in the Wildly Courageous Women Facebook group, where we're changing people's lives one brave decision at a time. I'm Dana Peever. Until next time, make great decisions and do life fun. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Wildly Courageous Women. Keep listening to hear more stories of these incredible women realizing their wildest dreams. If you have a story to tell about a decision that you've made that has impacted your life, I'd love to feature you as a guest. Please get in touch, and don't forget to grab my latest gift by clicking below. I'm Dana Peever. As always, make great decisions and do life fun.